Hello, I'm Preston Cook from the Hillsborough County Office of Emergency Management, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. Today, we have Preston Cook with us. Preston is the director of the Hillsborough County Office of Emergency Management. Good to have you on the program.
Good to be here, Bill.
You are a tough guy to schedule a time for, because every time I schedule a time for you to be on the program, and I've tried now for 2 months, a storm pops up and Preston's gone.
Well, we have to be prepared and we have to be flexible, so I'm glad I made it on, though.
I'm sure glad when I got up this morning, I immediately checked to see whether there's any storms within 50 miles.
Well, I'm glad I'm here.
You live by storms, don't you? From one to the next.
We have to be ready for whatever happens during hurricane season. So, and that's like we tell the citizens to be ready. We have to be ready, and we have to be flexible as well. So you never know when it's going to happen.
In fact, last time we talked, it was not a storm, but it was a pretend storm. And you were going through an exercise with all the county disaster areas.
Yeah, not like we get enough practice with some of the real things, right? But we have to take the time to be ready for anything. And one of the best ways to do that, as we've talked about before, is really to do it during an exercise, a drill, a mock-up of what could really happen so that we can fine-tune our plans. And so we take the time to do that, especially when we're coming into hurricane season, because we want to make sure we've done it before any storm impacts us.
Do you find this area to be complacent?
Well, you know, we haven't been hit with a major hurricane, Bill, in over a decade. So, yeah, we really are concerned about the folks really not taking it as serious as they should. But we also have a lot of new folks that are moving into the area on a daily basis. And those folks haven't seen a hurricane, don't know really the impacts that they can expect from it. So not only the complacency, but also the new people coming in really concerns me. So we really want to get the word out there.
When was the last time that Hillsborough County was actually hit by 75 mile an hour or better wind? Because that storm 11 years ago, 35 mile, 45 mile an hour winds. Of course, the rest of the state got beat up, but it went crisscross, missed us, but everybody thought they'd been through a hurricane.
You're talking about Hurricane Charlie. And, you know, we saw that it came through and it did impact this area. But that wasn't a major hurricane. 1921, the last time we really had a Category 3 or above storm come through this area.
Almost 100 years ago, 5 years short of 100 years ago.
Who's around to remember that, you know, and who's seen that level of devastation here in this area? We haven't. And so to think about that is mind-blowing, to see the type of devastation and understand what we really would face if a major hurricane came through here. We got to be prepared. We really have to get the word out there and tell folks that they got to take it serious.
In taking it serious is getting people to understand that it could happen.
Yes.
But almost 100 years since it has happened.
You know.
And how do you get people in the mindset that we could have a hurricane? It could be this year.
Right. Well, you know, what we do is we really try to capitalize on every opportunity that we have, even these small storms that come through and dump rain like we saw last summer that didn't, involve heavy winds, but it involved a lot of rain. And we saw the impacts that it had on our residents here in this county, even in this region, and that was just rain. So we try and use opportunities like that to say, listen, this wasn't really a major storm. It was an impact. It was bad, especially if your house was flooded, right?
Yeah, think how bad this was.
Right, but how bad would it really be if we had a hurricane coming through with 100 mile an hour winds for 6 hours at a time? The damage and the devastation that would do, and the misery that follows a major disaster, you know, is really something that you don't want to think about. But the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is if people don't take it serious enough, they're in an evacuation zone, we call for that zone to evacuate, and they don't, people could die, you know, and that is the biggest concern. So we want them to take it serious. I'd like to do it during a practice opportunity, a drill, but we take advantage of every opportunity to reiterate the importance of people thinking about it, understanding that it could happen, and then doing everything that they can while it's sunny to be ready for it.
You look at Pinellas County, and you think, half of that county has been underwater if there's a major hurricane.
Yeah.
And yet every morning, just coming across the bridges to get over here,
Yeah.
it's clogged.
Yeah.
So when you talk about evacuation, you can't wait till the last minute, right?
Listen, we know our interior roads. We don't have enough of them. We know that we're going to have, problems on the roadways. Daily construction, weekly, monthly construction issues that we see on our roadways is going to contribute to the difficulties that people are going to have when we call for an evacuation. And then, as you mentioned, the normal traffic. If people don't leave soon, if they're not prepared early enough and really paying attention and listening to, what's going on and being ready to go when we say pull that trigger and go, it's going to be more trouble than it really has to be. So that's why we're constantly saying, have a plan. Be prepared to activate that plan as soon as we say that you need to. Know where you're going to go. Have a location in mind. Test it before you need to actually use it. Have plans, have supplies in place.
What kind of location are we going to look at?
Well, listen, we
Just
have
something that's higher ground?
Well, here in Hillsborough County, we have a large coastal area, and a lot of that area is a part of the evacuation zone, right? Because we evacuate for the water, not the wind. We evacuate because of storm surge. So we have areas that we know could be impacted by water. But there's a lot of other areas throughout Hillsborough County that are higher, that are further inland. They may get some wind, but they won't be impacted by the water. That's where we have our shelters at. That's where you should look at for going for a friend or family's location to be able to shelter down, to ride out the storm. There are hotels and other locations throughout Hillsborough County. We always say we don't want people to go hundreds of miles, maybe go tens of miles. Get away from the water.
That's a good thought. I'm thinking you go to Ocala,
You don't have to go that far because you run from the water and you hide from the wind. That's what we say. And that is, you want to get away from the most dangerous part of this storm. What can really kill you is that water. It's the most devastating part of any hurricane. Getting inland, getting into a location that can handle the wind, you can be as safe and at least a location where you can ride out the storms. Mobile home parks, manufactured homes, they can't handle the wind. They have to evacuate to another more stable facility. Everyone else, get away from the water, get to a stable facility, and just hunker down until this thing passes.
I guess I've often thought this. Is there a reason, whether geographically or what, that almost every part of the state of Florida has been smacked with a hurricane the last 15 years since I've been here? But this one hasn't been touched?
That's baffling to all of us. It really is. And when you look at what the National Weather Service and even the Weather Channel, they came out and said, Tampa Bay is #1 in vulnerability to a major impacting hurricane. I believe that. I really hope everyone out there understands that it's only a matter of time. We can't keep this run going forever. We can't keep it going
nice,
forever. It would be great. It's not going to happen. We need to be ready when it does happen. And
How many times can you bet on red?
How many times? Well, preparedness is the key. Taking the time now to think about it. Like you said, understanding what the threats are, being prepared, thinking about it, having that plan, and being ready to take action is really what we're talking about here. There are a lot of options. There's a lot of ways people can learn how to get ready too. I mean, there's websites out there, ready.gov, hillsboroughcounty.org, our website.
It's not that we don't try.
Well,
a lot of information gets put out there.
There's a lot of information. And sometimes information overload is not good either. But take the time to do what's best for your family. If you own a business, think about what you need to do to back up your services. How can you have alternate sources of services provided to your business if we are impacted, post-impact? There's so many things that we can do to be ready from all different aspects. We just need to take a little time to do it. That's really what it's all about.
So, if you were telling people, and you are, what do I do? Hurricane's on the horizon. I think maybe it might come this way. I've got 2 days, 3 days. What do I do?
Hopefully people have listened to us, right, long before that storm is coming, even 5 days out. So they're thinking about it. They're talking to their family. They're saying, this is what's out there. Be ready to go, just in case this thing does come this way, because you never know, right? Even though it's out there, you don't know where it's going to go. Have that plan pulled off the shelf, not sitting there just waiting and collecting dust. Talking to those family members and saying, this is what we need to do if this storm comes. This is where we're going to go. This is where we're going to be. Talking to family members outside of the state, saying this is where you can find us if we have to evacuate.
That's important.
It's very important. Your family is going to worry so much about where you are if they can't find you following a major hurricane, and phones may not be working.
Cell towers down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have that plan in place. Talk to your loved ones beforehand. And then if this storm is coming, tell them, let's be ready to go. Check your supplies, wherever you're going to go. If it's a shelter, if it's a hotel, if it's another family member's home, make sure you have your things ready to go, just in case you need it. You may never need it. It may be a false alarm. That's a good thing. Some people think it's a bad thing. It may be a false alarm, but be ready to go if we say that you have to evacuate, and then be ready to do it at a moment's notice. That's really what we're talking about, just being ready, Bill. Simple, common sense stuff, just being ready to go.
I was talking to a friend that decided he needed a generator.
Mm-hmm.
And he put up 20 gallons of gas to go with that generator. And unfortunately, I said, how old is that gas?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I put preservatives in it, but it's about a year old.
Wow. Wow.
That gas is a hazard.
Well,
So you got to be careful. Putting up supplies is one thing, but rotating those supplies is a whole different thing.
Gasoline is a great example, but don't forget about the water that you have in there. Some people say have a hurricane party at the end of hurricane season, go through your supplies, eat the stuff up that you have and start thinking about the replenishing
I
of
love
those
parties.
supplies.
I'd be over.
At the end of hurricane season. Absolutely, November 30th. But
That's my birthday.
See, there you go.
Have a major birthday party
There you
for me
go.
on the
There you
30th.
go. Change those supplies out on your birthday. Absolutely. That would be a great opportunity to go through. Think about using those supplies that you fortunately didn't have to use, and thinking about the stuff that you're going to need. Gasoline is a good example. Having cash on hand as you go into hurricane season, because ATMs we know won't work. All the things that you can do for your family to make sure you're comfortable, make sure your pets are comfortable, make sure your young children are comfortable, or even your elderly family members and friends are as comfortable as they can be. Thinking about those things beforehand goes a long way. It really does.
Having cash on hand is a really good thought.
Mm-hmm. It is. ATMs don't work when the power's off. They don't work. The banks are closed. It's going to be difficult, and you're still going to need to buy stuff if you're able to get to.
Registers aren't going to work.
They're not going to work. They're not going to work.
If a merchant is open, they're going to take cash, or that's it.
That's right. You want to be prepared for whatever comes up, and just taking a few minutes to think about it really helps us to do that.
Didn't they pass some laws in the state of Florida here a few years ago about gasoline stations having to have generators?
Yes, they passed a law here in the state of Florida to talk about that impacted gasoline stations that are on evacuation routes.
Oh, on evacuation routes.
Correct, that are on evacuation routes, because the thought was to make sure that those folks that are evacuating will still have access to that gas.
Right.
But we said, okay, if the power's out and those gasoline stations can't operate, how are they going to pump gas? So they said, well, they need to have at least the connections for a generator, right? Not necessarily the generator, but the connections. And then we, the local communities, the state of Florida, can come in along those routes if necessary and assist those.
Pop in a generator that
can continue to pump that gas for those folks that are evacuating. Really trying to just get people up the road, get them out of harm's way so that they can be safe.
Of course, there's another example. It's great they can pump gas, but if you can't give them cash for it,
that's right.
The rest of their equipment isn't working.
That's right.
So you've got to have something for it.
That's right.
You're not going to trade bottle caps or nothing.
No, they want cash. They want money. They want some kind of currency. So just, again, having those things thought out beforehand really goes a long way, and again, knowing where you're going to go, have practiced it, and understanding that you need to leave as soon as we say you need to go, really will go a long way towards getting you there safely, getting you there in a timely manner, and making sure that you and your family are safe. And that's really what this is all about.
It's a bit scary. I remember back 12 years ago when Charlie came through. Mm-hmm. Is that the one that hit at Punta Gorda?
Yeah, Port Charlotte.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What bothered me about that was for days before that, and my wife will tell you, you've met Phyllis, mm-hmm. that I said, it's not going to hit Tampa.
Yeah.
They kept talking about hitting Tampa. I said, no, it's going to be down south
mm-hmm.
of here. It's going to come in.
Yeah.
And they really didn't get those people prepared.
Well, I tell
because
you.
this is the news market.
Yeah.
This is the big news market. And so
Well, we learned a lot.
gotta be careful a little bit about crying wolf.
Well, we talk about and there was a lot of lessons learned. When you think about that track that was coming right into Tampa Bay, everybody remember that little black line, right?
Yeah, but
coming right into the bay. You really have to, and what we've preached since then is don't pay attention to the little black line. You never know where it's going to go exactly. If it's in that cone, right? And that could be, it could go to the left or to the right of that black line. Anywhere in that cone is where that hurricane could possibly end up. So you need to be ready. If you're anywhere near it, you need to be taking the same precautions and preparedness activities that those folks that are thinking that it will come directly over them are doing as well. Because we saw with Charlie that it went further south. And
Yeah, but 3 days earlier, I was saying it's going south. And Crown Weather is excellent. I don't know if you what weather services.
There's
you
a
want,
lot of them. There's a lot of them.
But Crown is one that I've found to be excellent.
Yeah.
And I kept saying the news media are making an event out of Tampa, and I'm afraid it's going south.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it came in down there, and those folks weren't prepared. Plus the fact that they were going to have me evacuate. And my friends called me and said, hey, come over to Orlando. We got a bed for you. Stay here. They were without power for 4 days, and we didn't miss a bet.
Well, I say everybody that went to Orlando, they took the storm with them. And, and it was miserable after those storms. But you know what? At least you were looking at it. You were thinking about it. You were prepared to take whatever actions you needed to. And that's the key that we want everyone to focus in on, really.
I guess what I'm pointing at is personal responsibility. You've got to look at it, think, what's this doing? What are the people like you saying?
Right.
Not so much the talking heads on the television station.
Right. And being prepared to take those actions when you do hear us say go. That's all of that together. Make sure that our families, all of our residents, our citizens are as safe as they can be. That's my only goal, to make sure people get out of here and be safe. If we
And
do get
highways are
impacted.
not always the best way to get out.
Yeah.
I had if we were going to Orlando, I was back going
back roads, right.
674.
It may be. That may be the case when you talk about getting to an evacuation safe area that you're going to go to. That's why I always say you need to practice that, because one route may not be available that you thought you were going to take. But if you've thought about it, then you've hopefully thought about some ulterior routes, some other ways that you can get to the same location, and you need to practice those as well. Don't leave it to chance. Why leave it to chance when your life, your family's life, the other loved ones that you have are hanging in the balance and dependent on it? Just take a few minutes to go practice. Take that personal responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to be as ready as we can. Government will be there as soon as we can, okay? But everyone needs to be prepared for at least 5 days.
Now look at New Orleans.
Look at New Orleans. Look at a lot of other locations where government had well-intentioned and wanted to be there as soon as it could. If the
Especially
roads are
if you're
blocked,
poor.
Right, well, if the roads are blocked, if you can't get to you, it still is going to take time. So you need to make sure that you are self-sufficient as well as you can be, for at least 3 to 5 days. And if you have to evacuate, know where you're going to go. Practice the routes. Have your supplies in hand. If you need special things, have that in hand. Be ready to go at a moment's notice.
I think one of the interesting things on this last storms in Texas, and it happens almost every time.
Yeah.
People be in a flooded area, they'll stay in their home, and the flood will come in, they'll go to the second floor, then they'll get in the attic, and there's no way out.
We saw that a lot in Katrina. You saw that a lot in, like you said, many different storms. If you
Put a saw in the attic.
well, it's probably an option. But for us, we don't want people to stay if we tell them to get out.
Yeah.
That's the point. So for us, if we say evacuate, it's because we don't want to see that. We don't want to see people stranded in a location that they can't get assistance. We don't want them stranded in a location where they're not going to have the food, the need, whatever they need at that particular time, or we can't get to them, and so they're just going to be
Or good
there.
water to drink.
Or good water.
That can be the biggest problem of all. 72 hours and you're out of luck
That's
with water.
exactly right. That's
Food
exactly
you can
right.
go quite a while with.
Right.
Especially if some.
No, I was going to say, especially something like me, I can go for a long time. Water, not so much.
I'm waiting for that 7-year famine. I've got it made.
I'm famine proof, right? There you go. But no, seriously, when you think about getting ready, they got to take it into consideration. We don't want to see happen here, what's happened with some other families in other locations that weren't as prepared. We want our citizens to be ready. We want them to take it serious. We want them to be the ones that says, we were ready when this did come through. It was bad, but we survived and we did it pretty well. That's what we really want.
What are some of the other things that you think people should know? You know, we talk about hurricanes all the time, but there's a whole lot of other things that natural disasters that come along.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you asked it, because what I was going to say next is that when you prepare for hurricanes, you almost prepare for anything else that could impact you, that you could run into. You know, you would talk about the flooding that took place last summer. That wasn't a hurricane, but that was rain, that was impacts. But some people were displaced from their homes. You know, you talk about other events or other disasters, tornadoes that come through. Just the other day, yesterday, it was severe thunderstorms in our area. Could have dropped a tornado and impacted our residents. Think about it.
Knocked out the power at Brandon Hospital.
Well, it did.
Their generators kicked back in. But
right. Because it could happen any given day. And so if you're ready for a hurricane, if you have your supplies, if you have a plan, if you know where you can go to get additional assistance, then when something like that does happen that's out of the blue, because a tornado is not going to give you much of a warning, right? Like a hurricane, 2, 3, 5 days might. This is going to be storms coming in now, you know,
Been there,
drop
done
a
that.
tornado. Absolutely. You got to be ready to go. But if you're ready for a hurricane, you have supplies, you have a plan, you've talked about it with your family, you're just about ready for anything else.
Yeah, but there are the things that we don't even talk about.
Yeah.
At least as public, we don't talk about. We have a port here.
Yes.
With all kind of chemicals that come in and out of that port.
Right.
Then they're put on tankers or put on tank trucks, and out they go again. Those are the kind of things that are right now.
Right, and we've seen, you know, you look at situations where you have tankers overturned on interstates.
Exactly.
You know, they catch on fire, they have these chemicals. You have trains that are traveling through our communities, and what I always tell people is think about this. What if you left home, right, and go to work or wherever, and there's a train derailment near your home, and for the next 6 weeks you couldn't go home because of chemicals that have been spilled in that area. I've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in other parts of the country. It could happen right here. You mentioned we have the port, a wonderful port. They have phenomenal plans in place to be able to respond to those types of events. We have first responders that practice on a regular basis to respond to those types of events. We have plans in place, but I tell you, when it happens, it's going to impact our residents. That's why they need to be ready for anything that could happen, to include hazardous material events that could have you displaced right now, today, with no previous warning, and you have to be gone for days, weeks, possibly even months from what you're used to. What are you going to do then? Are you going to be ready for that kind of stuff? Is anybody ready for that?
Yeah, because, you know, right now, I have my passport and everything that I need all in a box at the house.
Right, right.
But if a train derails,
you're not at home.
and I can't get I'm in deep trouble.
Do we have a go bag or some type of supplies in your car? Do you have, you know, plans to have, you know, other supplies at a family's home somewhere that's, if you live near, you know, the port, if you live near an area that could be impacted and you have to be out? Have you thought about what else can you do to have something that you'll have available to you when something happens?
Right here. I took pictures of my passport.
There you go.
My birth certificate, the information I needed, and they're safely locked in here. Mm-hmm. But everybody carries one of these. It's a great file cabinet.
Everybody has one. They're great for keeping that. Also, when you think about the documents that you need to have, pictures of a thumb drive that has even more space, that if that dies on you and you don't have a battery charger for it, you don't have power, or you can't get to those documents, but you have the ability to carry those documents on a little device, a little thumb drive that has gigabytes and gigabytes of space. Yeah. You can still keep it there as well. Something that to think about. How can you keep those documents? How can you have backups to
Credit
the backups?
cards, all that stuff.
All of it. Backups to the backups is really what it's all about. Having those documents, having those pictures, having that information, right? Somewhere, somehow. That's key.
You know, in today's world, a good share of us, probably everybody that's watching this, has a printer with a scanner on it.
Yeah.
It only takes a few minutes to scan those important documents. As you point out, You can put them on a short flash drive.
Right. That's right.
And you've got something you could put in your car or something where you could take it with you, and you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Even if they don't have a scanner, you can take it to, a lot of places locally that'll scan the stuff for you. Or a friend's house.
Yeah.
They'll scan it for you. You can pay someone to scan it. The bottom line is put it into some type of format that you will have it available to you following a major impact, that you can access it easily.
Okay, we've got about 3 minutes.
Okay.
How would you like to just tell the audience the most important things you want to reiterate?
We've said a lot of it here now, but really thinking about it now, taking time to think about what they're going to do, have a plan in place, where they're going to go if they have to evacuate, where they're going to evacuate to, what supplies do you need for your family, for yourself. Are you thinking about it now and ready to go at a moment's notice? Understanding first and foremost, if you live in an evacuation zone. If you do, you need to be aware of that and be prepared to take action. We need to make sure that you're talking to your family members, talking to everyone, including them in this process, so that it's a family project, it's a family opportunity to do what you need to do to make sure that you're safe. Do it now. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until a storm is out there to start thinking about it. Do it and be ready to go so that we all can be safe.
Let's take the last minute to talk about projections for this year.
Okay.
What are they saying? We've got about a minute.
Well, like every year, there are projections for hurricanes, but this year, without without El Nino in place, there's the possibility that storms could form. So they're saying that we could get 16 to 18 named storms.
Wow.
7 or 8 of those could become hurricanes, and maybe 3 to 4 of those could become major hurricanes. The numbers don't matter, though.
Just takes one, right?
All it takes is one. If that happens, it's going to be a devastating season for us. We need to be ready. We need to be ready now.
Yeah, I was looking at the map and understanding the way the clouds move and everything.
Sure.
And if one comes in just north of Tampa, where the current is pushing up into the bay,
worst case scenario for us.
That could be a real.
Well, some people say that Rick hit is bad, but that scenario you just mentioned is actually worse.
Yeah, Gibsonton, I think it's Gibson, who got a post with a sign 15 foot in the air and saying, Class 5 hurricane, this is the water level.
That's how hot. It's a scary thought. We got to be ready for it. We have to be ready.
Preston Cook, thank you for coming on the program.
It's my
Always
pleasure.
interesting to have you, my friend. And thank you for everything you're doing here. You've really brought a whole level of expertise to the Tampa area. I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often, because you are, and we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, happy birthday, John Casimiro. Today's John's birthday. He's our director.